right, so as we start tonight, I was trying to think of a good story about procrastination. Honestly, I could think of one that's happening right now. So if you didn't know, our friend Autumn is getting married next week. Congratulations, Autumn. I have the honor of actually marrying Autumn and Andrew next Tuesday. Now, here's the thing. When you do a wedding, you're supposed to have a suit. It is Wednesday, and I still do not have my suit. I don't normally procrastinate things, but I really, really don't like buying new clothes. I don't like buying new clothes unless I can go like to a thrift store or to Goodwill or to like Target or Marshall's and just grab something really quick. I'm cool with that. But as far as like buying a suit and doing all the like measurements and stuff, if you're a guy and you've ever been fitted for a suit, it takes like this process. I don't really like it. And so what I've been doing is I've been waiting until the last possible moment. Right? And some of you guys know this as prom season is approaching. Maybe you're procrastinating on finding the person you're taking to prom. Maybe you already got your date and you've already figured out that you have to wear this color and this suit, but maybe you haven't gone to get fitted yet. Right? Procrastination. We're used to it. We do it a lot in our culture. We like to wait until the very last second, the very last minute to do something. Now, some of you can get by really well by doing that. I know some of you study and wait to the very last minute, or not study, wait to the very last minute and cram, and then you take a test. Don't get in the habit of doing that. It doesn't really work well post-high school for some of you. We procrastinate. When we think about this, we like to procrastinate, especially if you've done it for a while and you figured out, man, I actually am pretty good at this. I can procrastinate because I've did it before. And I do it again and again and again, and eventually you think, yeah, I'm good at it. It's just normal. I'm not even worried about how late it is for me to wait on something. The thing is that I think because we're in that mindset so much where we're just used to procrastinating, a lot of us like to procrastinate with our spiritual walk. Like a lot of us think, you know what, I'm going to get right with God, but just not yet. Like I'm 15, I'm 16, I'm 17, I'm 18. I got a whole life ahead of me. I can just wait to get right with God later on. It's something I don't have to do. I don't have to do that right now. So maybe you're here tonight and you're in that space. Maybe you're in that space where you're like, man, I'm really good at procrastinating. And this whole spiritual thing, walking with Jesus, like, I'll get it right, but I'm going to wait. I'll get it right eventually because I'm a really good procrastinator. Others of you here in the room tonight, maybe you haven't gotten it right with Christ. You haven't gotten it right with Jesus, not because of procrastination, because you know that you can get it done, but maybe you feel like you've already gone too far. Like maybe you feel like I've already done too much, that grace of God, that love of God, that's not really made for me. Right? It's like when you get all the way up to the night before you're supposed to have your suit and you haven't even gone to the store and you're just like, you know what? Forget it. It's too late. I can't do it. All right, maybe that's you. Maybe you're in that space tonight where you're like, man, I've already messed up too much. Like God doesn't really want me to be a part of his family, not a part of his relationship. And so whether that's you that's just procrastinating because you think you have time to get it right later, whether that's you who are just not really focused on that because you feel like you've gone too far, or maybe you're the third person in the room who has this relationship with God, but you're not really living like it. Because you're like, man, like, wow, I don't have to really live a sold-out life for Christ. I got all the time. I can do that when I'm 30, when I'm 40, when I'm 50. I can do all that way down the road. I hope this message tonight speaks to you. So tonight we're going to be in Luke chapter 23. So we're going to be in Luke chapter 23. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the verses up on the screen as I read. And what I want you to know is we've kind of skipped past some of the crucifixion story. Right? So we've kind of skipped forward through some of that. Right? We've already missed the trial. We've already missed Jesus being betrayed by his follower. Like, right? We kind of jumped forward and all that. And so, hey, if you haven't got to that point yet, if you're not really sure like where we're picking up, I'm going to give you a very high-level view of the story. But I would encourage you, read Luke chapter 23, Luke chapter 22, the lead-in into this passage, and read the whole story. All right, so here as we pick this up, I want to point out a couple things. Jesus have already been betrayed by his closest friends. Jesus at this point has already been humiliated in public. Jesus at this point has already been beaten and whipped beyond what normal men can handle. Jesus here has already had his hair and his beard ripped out of the skin. Like Jesus has already been spit on. Like Jesus has already been carrying his cross up to this hill. He's already walked and carried this heavy cross up to this point. Right? And Jesus here, as we pick this up in Luke 23, actually already has the nails, the spikes, the railroad spikes that we know, that we think of. They've already gone through his wrists and through his ankles. This is where Jesus is. He's hanging above all of these people on the cross, and he begins to utter these words. Right? So Luke 23, starting in verse 34. It says, Jesus said, Father, forgive them. Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they're doing. And they began to divide up his clothes by casting lots. The people stood watching, and the rulers even sneered at him. They said, he saved others, let him save himself. If he is God, the Messiah, the chosen one. The soldiers also came up and mocked him. They offered him wine vinegar, and they said, if you are king of the Jews, save yourself. There was a written notice put above him, which read, this is the king of the Jews. One of the criminals who hung there hurled insults at him. Aren't you the Messiah? Save yourself and save us. But the other criminal rebuked him. Don't you fear God? He said, since you are under the same sentence, we are punished justly. For we are getting what our deeds deserve, but this man has done nothing wrong. Then he said, Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. And Jesus answered him, truly, I tell you, today you will be with me in paradise. Right, here's the picture. Jesus is up on the cross, and he's got these two thieves, one on each side of him. Right? Guys who had done things in their life that they deserved what they were getting. This was a penalty for what they had done in their life. Right? They're hanging up there, and one begins to mock Jesus. Man, if you're really who you say you are, save yourself and save us. Like joking, like picking fun. And the other one, humbled in the moment, says, no. That's Jesus. He's done nothing wrong. Right? I don't want you to miss this. Last week we talked a lot about loving our enemies. But I don't want you to miss the beginning of this story. Like, please don't miss the fact that Jesus starts this off by saying, Father, forgive them. Father, forgive them. Like, he's saying that for the people who literally just did all the things that I just said. Who pulled out his hair, who spit on him, who whipped him, who put the nails through his wrist. All of those things. He says, Father, forgive them. That was for the people there in the moment. That was also for people all throughout history. The most evil people in all of history, that was also for them. Those that have killed thousands and attacked the vulnerable, those that have had zero care for life of anybody but themselves, those words were also for them. Father, forgive them. And sometimes I think we kind of get wrapped up and we get lost in the fact that those words, Father, forgive them, are also for me and for you. Father, forgive them. See, we have been forgiven. Like, that's hope. We've been forgiven, but not because of anything that we did. This happened for you. This forgiveness happened for you before you even existed. So don't miss the first part of this. You are forgiven. Your flaws, they're forgiven. Your sins, they're forgiven. Your words, they're forgiven. Your actions, they're forgiven. Your selfishness, it's forgiven. You are forgiven, but will you accept it? See, Jesus here is hanging between two of the lowest people that he could have been. There's really nothing lower that he could have been up against than these two criminals. And in this moment, he still gives them the choice. They still have the same choice that me and you have. They have the choice. Are they going to recognize and see the truth of who Jesus is? Or are they going to turn away and continue to live for their own gain? Like, the very same choice that the two thieves had is the same choice that you have. Will you recognize the truth of Jesus and who he is? Or will you continue to turn away? At the very last moments of his life, one of the thieves said out loud, professed their faith in Jesus as who he is, Lord. He identified his life full of sin and acknowledged that Jesus is Lord. And Jesus responds, today you will be with me in paradise. Like, this exchange is happening in maybe the most excruciating pain ever known to man. The most excruciating pain, the largest, the biggest agony anybody could face. And even in this moment, we see the love of Jesus. No matter how much you've done, no matter how much you walk in here with, no matter what baggage you're carrying, not more than that. It's not too late. So if that's you, you feel like, man, I've made too many mistakes. This Jesus thing, this God thing, like, man, it sounds great, but I've already messed up too much. I want you to look to the thief on the cross. If you think you're too far gone to get right with God, you're not. If you're still breathing, which you are because you're here in this room with us, you have not missed out on your opportunity. So tonight, the same message that Jesus had for the thief on the cross, he has for you. Ephesians 2:8-9 says it this way: "For it is by grace you have been saved through faith. It's not from yourselves. It's the gift of God, not by works, so that no one can boast." See, salvation from Jesus is a gift that you couldn't earn. And it's still here. The gift is still available for you. The question is, do you receive it? Jesus is working. Jesus is working. He was working in this thief's life, his whole life. It took him until the last possible moment for him to experience and to receive the gift. Jesus still saved him, and he can still save you. If you declare with your mouth Jesus is Lord and you believe it in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. Romans 10:9. For it is with your heart that you believe and are justified, and it's with your mouth that you profess your faith and are saved. The thief did those two things. He believed in his heart, and he confessed with his words, identifying Jesus Christ as Lord. As we shift the conversation, I'm going to ask you two simple questions. What are your words saying, and what is your life screaming? Right? Actions speak louder than words. You've heard that before. So what are your words saying, and what is your life screaming? Because if you believe in Christ as Lord and Savior, your life shows that. See, there's some here in the room that unfortunately you think you've kind of played this system. You think, man, I got to figure it out. Like I did the thing where like I raised my hand at some point, right? And then I'm good. Like I show up to church sometimes. I come to youth group sometimes. I hang out. I play games. I eat pizza. I hang out with my friends. And that's really great. Like I'm glad that you are able to do that. But that's not the point. See, the thing is, there's something funny about time. Whether you're 12, 14, 16, 18, we all think that we have all the time in the world to make things right. I told you some of us are procrastinating until we get to like 30 or 40 or 50 because, yeah, that's when I'll figure it out. We really do think that we have all the time in the world. And honestly, like I know that a lot of you think that way because I remember thinking that. I remember thinking that in high school that, man, I have all the time in the world. I'm young, I'm healthy. I don't really have anything I hadn't seen anybody die in my life. There was no trauma. It just didn't really exist to me until the day after I graduated high school. All right, the day after I graduated high school, I get a text from one of my friends that says, hey, the guy that you sat next to in senior English all year, he died last night. What? The day after we graduated high school, I get this text. Man, they said, hey, he died last night. He was hit by a drunk driver. Boom, 18, gone. Right, first, like a range of emotions began to like sweep over me, right? I hadn't really experienced death quite that close. Definitely not the same age where I had people dying. And so like first, like death was real. It was a little overwhelming. Like I hadn't experienced that. And almost immediately after, the first question that popped into my head was, man, did I ever even like share with him about Jesus? Did he even know I went to church? Did he know I did any of that stuff? Didn't take me long to realize that the answer was no. Like I sat next to him all year in senior English class. I had lunch with him because English was right before lunch. And I remember sitting with him at lunch, sitting in class. And never once did I ever talk about my faith, share about my faith, because I was going through the motions. Like I thought, man, I can get serious about my faith when I get older. I don't really have to worry about that now because, you know, that makes me the weird guy. Like, I don't want to be that guy. Every conversation I had with him for an entire school year was about anything but faith. It's about cars, and it was about girls, and it was about jobs. It was about what we were going to do after high school. It was about all those things, but it wasn't about what was most important. Right? I would go to church. I would go to youth, and I would do all those things, and it was cool. I feel like I had it all figured out, but really it wasn't faith. Like it wasn't living it out. Just going through the motions. Right? And I began to think about this, and I was sitting there thinking about, man, how much time do I really have? How much time is actually promised to me? And the truth is that we don't control how much time we have. Period. We don't get to control that. We don't know when our time is up. And so I'm not really saying this to like be a guilt trip or to scare you. I just want you to think about how much time are you actually promised? But I've had conversations with even some of you in the room tonight that you're like right on the edge. You're right there and you're like, I've been hearing about Jesus. All of it sounds really great, but I don't know about the surrendering part. Like, I don't know about dying to myself. I don't know about actually making him Lord of my life because I still got too much stuff to do. Yeah. Some of you in the room also are like, you know what? I'm a Christian, but I've known you for 2 or 3 years and I've seen no growth. Right? And again, I'm not trying to guilt you. I'm not trying to shame you into something. I'm just trying to make you think. I'm just trying to make you think about what is actually important. What are my words saying? And what is my life screaming? Right? We have to confess with our heart and our words that Jesus is Lord. And when we believe that, our lives do look different. Now, don't hear, I'm not saying that you're going to be perfect because none of us are. But you are on a journey to look more and more like Christ. What are your words saying? And what is your life screaming? So to those who are in the room that have been procrastinating the decision, you've been around group, you've been around Christians, maybe you've even gone to camp, you've come to D now, you do all the things, but you're not quite there. You're not quite there. You're not ready to give up all the little g gods, the lowercase g gods in your life. You're not ready to give those up because those all make you feel really good. And you think, you know what? I'm going to get right with God later. But when is it going to be too late? Don't wait until your final moments. One, because we don't know when those are. But two, life with Christ is so much better than anything else that you think or imagine could fulfill you. I think if we were able to talk to the thief on the cross that gave his life to Christ there in his last moments, I think if we were able to talk to him, I think he would have traded his entire life to go back and live his life from the start, knowing Christ. And he would probably say something like, life is a terrible thing to waste. Imagine if you could go back and start over and start fresh. I look back even on my own life, my time in middle school, my time in high school, where I was just coasting, and I realized, man, what a waste. So really, the invitation tonight is something that's going to be a little bit different. I don't have music. I don't have like a worship band up here. Really, I'm going to ask you a couple of prompts. And then I'm going to play some music, and it'll just play for a song. And really, I just want you to think, and I want you to process. Right? And of course, if you need to talk to somebody, all of your leaders are in the room. We're all here. We'll talk with you. We'll pray with you. But really, I want to give you space to ask yourself a couple of questions. One, I want to ask you, what in your life are you holding on to? What in your life are you holding on to where you can't let go and let God control your life? Like what are you holding on to so tight? What is it that you're trying to find fulfillment in? What is it that you're putting on the pedestal of who God should be in your life? What is it? If it's your pride, let it go. If it's your insecurity, let it go. If it's your doubt, let it go. If it's the fact that maybe for the first part of this, you're like, nah, he could never forgive me, let it go. You've been forgiven. So whatever it is that's got this grip, that you've got your grip on, I would ask you just to spend some time, spend a couple minutes, and unpack that thought. What is it that I'm placing in that space of where God should be? For others, maybe I just want you to think about, man, what are your words saying and what is your life screaming? Like it's incredible, some of the things that we say, and it's fantastic. But is your life actually matching up to what we're saying? Like I think back to high school, and I think back, and man, if I had told anybody that I went to church, they'd probably be like, well, I never would have guessed. Like, what was my life screaming? What were my words saying? So really, we're just going to leave some space. I'm going to have a song. It's going to play. I'm just going to ask you just to wrestle with that. So for some of you, that means you need to like stand in the back somewhere. It means you got to sit on the floor somewhere. If you got to sit in your chair and be still, it means you put your head down. If that means you look up on the screen and watch the lyrics as they play, whatever space you need, I'm just going to leave it open for you. All right? And then after we're done, I'll come back up and I'll break us out. Okay? So let me pray, and then we'll have that time.